A warm welcome to all the participants attending today's session. I'm very honored to welcome our guest, Dr. Lakshmanan, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Vailtech University. He finished his Bachelor in Mechanical Engineering and Masters in Engineering Design from Alagappa Chettiar College of Engineering and Technology, Karaikudi. He completed his PhD from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, in the area of composite material. Then he completed postdoctoral from University of Delaware, USA. His research interests include automotive crashworthiness, fabrication of composite material, design optimization based lightweight product design and development. He also worked on Department of Energy sponsored design, development and demonstration of ultra lightweight driver side car door about 2 years. Before his postdoctoral experience, he worked as CAE crash engineer in Ford Private Limited. With this, I welcome Dr. Lakshmanan to give a lecture on a journey from conventional to current practices in product design using predictive tools. Once again, I would like to welcome the guest on the Department of Mechanical Engineering on my own behalf. Thank you. Lakshmanan sir, you can start your presentation, sir.
Yes, Professor. All right. So I hope you could able to see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all right. So I can get started, right? So I can get started. Hello. Yes. Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for such a warm welcome by Dr. Vijayan, and I would like to say my thanks to the HOD for giving me the opportunity to present in this webinar series, and also I would like to thank the organizers for their wonderful coordination for this event to be successful. Right, all right. From my topic is like a journey from conventional to current practices in product design using predictive tools. Okay. See, in most of the time, like, see, in this particular talk, most of the time, what I'll be talking is like, I'll be talking about predictive tools or the optimization methods which will be applicable for the product design domain, particularly for automotive components. So that is the reason if you look at the title slide, so I have a car door basically, like, see, there are some conventional design practices or the practices, like, see, the design is based on some metallic structures. So one can, like, see, through this lecture, I'm going to talk about composite optimization techniques and other things, which will convert this, like, see, conventional design process into a lightweight design process. And I'm going to talk about all those things, like, see, in a formally organized lecture. Okay. This is going to be the outline. So initially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the design. So a rudimentary definition of design is given at the initial, like, see, in my next slide. Then I'm going to talk about types of design, like, see, particularly I have taken out engineering design, and I'm going to talk about, like, see, how engineering design differs, or, like, see, differs from other design practices, and what is the conventional design practices, and what are all its drawbacks, and how it is overcome by the current design practices. I'm going to spend some time in talking about all these information. Next comes the optimization. So when it comes to optimization, again, I'm going to give a rudimentary definition on optimization and the terminologies related to optimization. Then what is, like, see, suppose if you consider a optimization problem, what would be the flow chart? Like, suppose you have a problem, like, so how are you going to approach the problem using optimization technique? And the problem statement, I have a simple problem to like now see with using some graph, I'm going to show you like now so what is the meaning of feasible design and unfeasible design and the optimum design. Okay, so based on this small introduction, I'm going to talk about the different types of not like elaborately. I'm going to tell out the types like now see what are all the types available in optimization methods. Okay, so with this information, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to lightweight design. So the need for lightweight design, like now, so because like now see, without a need, we should not talk about lightweight design. So I'm going to talk about need from the perspective of automotive industry. Then I'm going to give a brief introduction about composite metal. I'm not going to take much of my time in telling or in like giving introduction to composite material, but I'm trying to bring out some important points related to composite material. Then I'm going to talk about composite optimization. Okay, so how like suppose if you consider a predictive tool, how like see what are the steps involved in composite optimization I'm going to talk about, and at the end what I'm going to do is I'm going to present a case study where whatever I have shown here, right? Like now see I've taken a car door. Okay, so in that car door, like basically some components, like now say maybe the front panel, back panel, and the structural components are considered, and for that structural part, how to do the composite optimization. Like now, so I'm going to talk about the procedure involved in carrying out composite structural optimization using predictive tools. So this is going to be the outline of my presentation, right? Okay, so so far so good. Okay, so let me start my talk with this question. Okay, so what is a design? So what is it actually? Okay, so from the rudimentary terms or from the basic definition, like see, it is the practice of conceiving and planning something which does not exist. Okay, so this is the rudimentary definition of a design. Okay, so what it consists of, like now see broadly, this particular term broadly consists of many things. Like now see, one can create structures out of design, one can create environments out of design, one can create interfaces, also one can create products, services, features and processes. Okay, so using like now see this term design is a holistic thing. Like now see using design, one can create these sort of things. Okay, from this like the basic definition, I'm going to tell you. I'm sorry, got stuck. Okay, hello. I hope it is visible. Okay. Right. So with that basic introduction or the definition to design, okay. So what are all the types of design? Okay. So in this lot, intentionally what I have done is I have left out one important aspect of design which I'll be talking about in my successive slides. But what these slides talks about. Okay, so if you look at from clockwise from top to bottom, like now see if you consider the figure in the clockwise direction, like now the first one basically, and on the left corner you have a I have considered one picture. Basically it talks about architectural design. Okay, so the next one comes is industrial design. Okay, then comes interior design. Okay, next is user interface design. Now bottom left, then you have bottom center is user experience design and software design. Like now see one can consider like now see these different designs, particularly like now see when you talk about design. Okay, so what is the common attribute associated with all these design practices? Okay, see if you look at the common attribute, basically the common attribute is the aesthetics or the appearance. Okay, so here like now see I don't say that it will not consider functionality. It will consider functionality to a minimum level, but the most importance is given to the aesthetics or the appearance. Okay, so when I talk about architectural design, like now see, though it has some functionality, but when I think of an architectural design, like, basically the aesthetics comes into picture. Okay, so or comes into my mind. Okay, similarly, when I talk about industrial design, like, basically it does not, though it has some functionality, but mostly the importance is given to the aesthetics. Okay, so similarly, like, you have interior and other design practices. Okay, so from these types, okay, already I have mentioned, I have left out one important part of design which I call as an engineering design. Okay, so what is an engineering design? Like, now, so what it is, or what is being considered in engineering design particularly? Okay, so in a rudimentary terms, or in a basic, like, in a layman term, what I can say is, like, usually engineering design ignores aesthetics. Okay, because it will not give importance to the aesthetics or the appearance. Okay, but what is most important is it has to satisfy some functionality. Okay, when I talk about engineering design, like, I'm not saying, like, you have to totally ignore the aesthetics. Like, in some part, like, aesthetics are important, but the main importance is the given to satisfying the functionality. Okay, so this, like, it depends on the type of industry you are working with. Like, when I talk about functionality, okay, it depends on the type of industry we are working with. Like, suppose if you consider aerospace industry, like, instead of aesthetics, like, performance is more important. So they're defining, or, like, particularly satisfying the function is more important than the appearance. Okay, and on the other hand, like, you have electronics industry and you have packaging industry. In these two industries, like, basically the functionality is not much needed. Basically, like, the appearance is the most important thing. Okay, so see, this is, like, that's what, like, it depends on the type of industry we are working with. And particularly I have taken this example, like, automotive industry. Okay, to show that here, like, both the performance and the appearance is most important. Okay, see, if you consider, like, Swift and Lamborghini, so basically, like, the performance is defined by the performance parameters, like ride quality, safety, and fuel economy. Okay, so whenever, like, you have a better ride quality, safety, and fuel economy, obviously the cost is going to increase. Okay, also, like, see, appearance, like, see, the interior body appearance, like, see, or the interior or the exterior body appearance, which also demands for more cost. Okay, so particularly in automotive industry, like, see, though functional is the performance, or the functional, the so-called the functional is more important. Now, to some extent, the aesthetics also important. Okay, so what I'm going to consider here is, like, suppose if you are considering the functional aspect of the industry, okay, then functionality cannot be satisfied without design iterations. I hope you would agree with me. Okay, you cannot get the required functionality or required function with a single design process. Okay, so it has to go through a number of iterations. Okay, so when I talk about number of iterations, like, see, this is what the conventional design process look like. Okay, so you have a concept design, like, I'll come to that conceptual design part later. But if you look here, like, you can build a prototype. Okay, you test the prototype for its performance. Okay, and you will look for its criteria. So whether it satisfies the criteria, like, stress level criteria, functional criteria, we need to see, like, whether it satisfies the criteria. If it does not satisfy the criteria, what you have to do is you have to modify the physical prototype. Okay, you have to again make the prototype with changes, like, with changing the variable, and you have to go through the process again. Like, you have to measure the performance, and you have to see whether it is meeting the criteria. If it does not meet the criteria, again you have to go back and you do all the things. Okay, so the problem with this conventional design process is that you have to spend a lot of time and money in creating the prototype. Okay, so that is what I have mentioned. So I have, like, so you have that dotted uh, domain. Okay, so within which what you have to do is you have to do a lot of design iteration, because already I talked about design iteration, because functionality cannot be satisfied without design iterations. Okay, so when I in the conventional design process, okay, if you are trying to meet the functionality, so you have to do n number of prototype, and it is going to cost you so much. Okay, and that is like no related to the physical prototype. Like now see, even in the conceptual design stage, like now see, you are not building the physical prototype, you are in the process of building the prototype. What you have to have is you have to have a conceptual design, because like see, the process is you have a conceptual design. Okay, so based on the conceptual design, like, you come up with the drawing and other things. Then the process is like converting the drawing into the physical prototype. Okay, so that process, it's a very tedious process. Even at the conceptual design stage, okay, one has to spend a lot of time and in coming up the conceptual design. Okay, so in short, like now see, in short, what I can say is like now see, this conventional design process is a very tedious process. Okay, so you have to spend too much of money, you have to spend too much of time, and you have to spend like too much of personal, okay, in coming up with the uh, manufactured product. Okay, so that is what is shown here. Like now see, it is to show that what is this is how the life is before AutoCAD. Like now see, AutoCAD made things little better. Okay, so before AutoCAD, like now see, it is like now see, because I intentionally use this word tedious. Okay, to support my word tedious thing, like now see, I have brought this picture to show that actually the conventional design process is a tedious process. Okay, and with this conventional design process, okay, the component, like now see, such a complicated component like this turbojet engine, see, this would have been never possible with such conventional design process. It would have been like that possible, but the point which I want to make here is like now see, it would have been like now see, more tedious. Okay, when you try to come up with such a complicated design, like now see, you have to create a drawing, you have to conceptualize. Based on the conceptual design, you have to come up with the design diagrams. Like now see, these are all very tedious process. That's why I said like now see, conventional design process is a very tedious process. Okay, so now, okay, so what is the current practice? Okay, so I have like now so two graph or two pictures which is being shown in this particular slide. You see on the right hand side, like basically it is a detailed design, detailed picture. Basically, it tells you that at some point of time, like because you will not be making the physical prototype at the beginning. Okay, say so unless like see, like previous thing, like see, you will be making, once you have the conceptual design, you try to make the physical prototype out of that conceptual design. I'm sorry, but here the process is like now see, once you have a conceptual design, what you will do is like now you will build a physical virtual prototype. Okay, so in my next slide, like now say, I'm going to support each of these points with respect to predictive engineering tools. But you have a virtual prototype, and you will try to measure the performance of the virtual prototype through simulations. Okay, so and you see like now whether it meets the criteria. Okay, so once it's once like now see, if you are sure that it meets the criteria, then you will test it physically. Okay, so the first criteria is like now see, simulation wise it is meeting the criteria. It does not necessary that after the simulation it will meet the actual criteria. So you have to test it physically. Okay, so after you test it, like now say whether if it meets the criteria, then okay, like now you can go for the actual manufacturing. If it does not meet the criteria, then you have to go for design iterations. Okay, so the advantage with this virtual prototype is like now you can change the variables in the software, in the predictive engineering tools. Okay, so you have like now, so you can vary the n number of you can vary the variables n number of times. Okay, and you can measure the performance and test the performance through simulation. Okay, so once like now see, after that it meets the actual test criteria, then you can go forward and fabricate the component. Okay, so I think like now see, this looks much better compared to the previous design process, conventional design process. The same thing is shown in the simplest form on the left hand side. Like now, so you have a CAD, because already I said like now virtual prototype, in the sense you will make the prototype in the virtual environment, that is going to be CAD. Okay, then you will do it in you will do the virtual testing, so that is done by CAE. Okay, then you build the model, you test it. Okay, if the testing does not yield good result, then again you will change the CAD model and you can do the virtual testing. Okay, what you can do is like now see at the virtual test level itself, like now what one can do is one can do the like now see design iterations. Okay, right. So in the next slide, what I'm going to do is like now basically I can call this the whole approach as CA in product design. Okay, so you have like now see like I mentioned in the last slide, what I mentioned was that at each point what I'm going to do is I'm going to support a predictive tools like now, so which makes the design process simple. Okay, at the conceptual stage, like now see there are like now see the well-known software is OptiStruct. Okay, so one can create or one can come up with concepts, variety of concepts using this tool called OptiStruct tool. Then you have like now see when you want to build the virtual prototype, like now you have n number of softwares. Like now see I hello. Okay, you have like when it comes to virtual prototype, you have variety of softwares, but like now what I have done is like now see the ones which are like very popular, I have kind of mentioned here. Like now you have CATIA, you have previously like now see Cryo, previously it was called ProE, then you have UG Unigraphics, SolidWorks, and like now see you have many more. Okay, and measure the performance and test by simulation. Like now see that is done by like a variety of tools. Again, like you have ANSYS, Abacus, and Hypermesh. Like I say, basically like now for static analysis, one can go for Hypermesh OptiStruct, and you have ANSA, LS-DYNA, Nastran. Okay, so these variety of tools are available to solve a particular type of problem. Suppose if I want to solve a highly complicated nonlinear dynamic finite element analysis, then I can go for LS-DYNA. Okay, so if I want to solve a simple static problem, okay, then one can go for Abacus or ANSYS. Okay, so for particularly for crash analysis, like now say frontal impact, side impact, people are considering DYNA as the better tool. Okay, similarly with other tool like now see if it is going to be NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness, people use Nastran. Okay, over other softwares. Okay, so using these softwares, like now one can measure the performance and test. Measure performance and test by simulation. Okay, then what you can do is like now see again like now see that design iterations will take place. So you have a virtual prototype, you can make the virtual prototype. In the virtual prototype, if you want to make any changes, you can do the changes, and you can come up with the final product if it meets the design criteria. Okay, even like now see before actually going for the manufacture, like now suppose you have done the product, like now say the design is done, what one can do is like now one can do the one can make use of this CAM software. It's called computer aided manufacturing. Okay, and one can optimize the process parameters, like now see this machining parameters in CAM, and then you can actually go for the actual fabrication. Okay, so this is in the detailed manner I have mentioned. On the left hand side, again it is the same thing, but here this optimization will, comes into picture. Okay, so what is the purpose of optimization? Like now, the purpose of optimization is it not only creates the conceptual, like now see variety of concepts based on the design criteria. It also help us to come up with help us to do some like now virtual testing in the CAE environment. Right, all right. Okay, so what is like, so what is the takeaway? So what is the final remark? Already I have mentioned conventional design process is a tedious process. Okay, I have mentioned, and with the current options, with the current available options, okay, these softwares, like now whatever the softwares I have mentioned, it suggests designs that satisfy the conditions, like let's say whatever the conditions we set forth, that will satisfy the conditions. Okay, so particularly CAD, CAM, and CAE. Okay, so has become an indispensable tool in present-day design practices. In most of the industry, people started using CAD, CAM, and CAE. That has become an indispensable tool in the present design practices. Like now already I have mentioned about the tools, like a variety of tools. Okay. One important point is like now see using design optimization as part of CAE. Already I have mentioned design proposal or design concepts and evaluation can be done simultaneously to get optimum design. So this brings up the question of what is an optimum design. Okay, so from now onwards, what I'm going to do is like now see, okay, see we have seen we can use like now see variety of predictive tools in the design process, but actually to get an optimum like now so to get an optimum design process or to get an optimum design output like now see we need to know a little bit about optimum. Okay, so this brings up the concept of optimization. Okay, so this is the basic rudimentary or the basic definition. An optimum is the greatest degree or best results obtained or obtainable under specific conditions. Okay, so I'm going to talk about in detail about specific conditions and other things like now. So what is the specific conditions? These specific conditions gives the design freedom, right? So before actually getting to the optimization and other like now say more into optimization, like now say let us talk about the terminologies associated with optimization. Okay, so the important terminologies are like now design variable. Like now say whenever you talk about an optimization problem, okay, you have to have a design variable. Okay, so what are all these design variables? Like now, these design variables are nothing but structural parameters. Okay, that can be varied, okay, during the optimization process. Okay, suppose like if you consider material property, geometry and size. Okay, so size can be varied, okay, to get an optimum size and optimum geometry. And the design space, like so what is the design space? Like see, it is the selected parts which are designable during the optimization. So suppose like now I'm going to design something for the beam. Okay, so all beams which are considered to be the design space. Okay, and what is the response? Like now what I'm going to measure out of this optimization process, that is going to be the response. So measurement of a system performance. Okay, example like now say I'm going to reduce the volume, I'm going to reduce the mass. Okay, so these are all the some of the examples for response. So you have got design variable, design space, and design response. Okay, and other thing is like objective function, constraint function. Okay, so what is an objective function? So objective function is a function. Okay, so you have to optimize the design variable for the subjective function. Okay, so minimize the stiffness, maximize the stiffness weight ratio, or minimize the mass, maximize the natural frequency. So this is going to be the objective function that will be met based on the design variable. Okay, so you have got this design variable. Okay, then constraint function. So what is a constraint function? So constraint functions are nothing but the limits, okay, which is placed on the or the restrictions which is placed on the response function. Okay, so already I talked about response function. Okay, so on the response function, like say you are going to place some restrictions. Okay, example like say the displacement. The displacement should not too much, or it has to be within some limit. Like there should be some maximum or minimum bound will be there. Okay, so the displacement should vary within that particular value, the lower bound and the upper bound. Okay, that basically tells you the constraint function. Okay, when you have this objective function, constraint function, and you have design variable and response function. Okay, so what are you looking for? Like now say, are you looking for a feasible design? Okay, so what is a feasible design? Like now say the one that satisfies all the constraints. Okay, so we may be interested in feasible design. Okay, and the next term is like infeasible design. Okay, so the one which violates one or more constraint function. Like now see, already I talked about constraint function. In the constraint functions, if one or two constraint functions are not met during the optimization process, then one can say that it is going to be a infeasible design, and what is then optimum design. Like now see, we will be interested in finding the optimum design. Okay, so there is one thing like now which is feasible design, like now which satisfies all the constraints. Okay, but that will not satisfy, that is not going to be the optimum design. Okay, so optimum design is the one which satisfies all the constraints. That is one thing, and it gives the minimum possible value for the objective function. Okay, so you have objective function. Okay, so whether like now see, it gives the minimum possible value for the objective function, then one can say that that design is going to be a optimum design. Okay, and so this is going to be the flow chart for the optimization process. Okay, so you have a problem. Okay, so from the problem you identify the design objective and design variables and constraints. Okay, so based on this like objective variables and constraints, what you would do is you would wind up getting the initial design. Okay, you will do some analysis on the initial design. Okay, you perform analysis and check the constraints. Okay, so once the constraints are met, okay, so it satisfies the criteria, then like now see the optimization process closes. Okay, otherwise what you can do is like now see, if the constraint, the analysis does not satisfy the conversion criteria, then you have to update the design using optimization. Like now see, variety of optimization schemes are there. Okay, then you redo the analysis. Okay, so this is going to be the optimization flow chart. Okay, so with that information, let me say how to write a problem in the optimization sense, like in a mathematical sense. So that is what is here. So what is the problem statement? So the problem statement is you have an objective. Okay, so it is like say objective is going to be a function. Okay, so what do I want? Like whether I'm going to minimize the function or I'm going to maximize the function. Okay, by using these design variables. Okay, so the design variables are going to be like nothing. It has already I have mentioned. It has got lower bound and upper bound. Okay, so by varying this bounds like nothing, lower bound and upper bound. Okay, and you have got some constraints. Okay, so what is the performance targets that must be met? Okay, so when you have these three things like an objective function, variables, and design constraints, okay, then one can solve the optimization problem. Okay, the point which I want to make here is like now see the function which you are going to consider here. Okay, the f of x, like now see the objective function and the constraint function, and can be a linear function or non-linear function, implicit or explicit, and are continuous. It can be any function. Okay, so this brings up like now see whenever you have like now see variety of variables and variety of design constraints, then this optimization will become a multi-objective optimization. Okay, so I'm not going to get into the solution part. Like now see there are like a variety of solution methods are there. I'm not going to get into the solution process, but let's look at a simple problem. Like now I have a cantilever beam. Okay, it has got some length, it has got some breadth and height. Okay, if you look at the problem from the perspective of optimization, okay, so what you can do is like now suppose if I want to minimize the weight, okay, so what you have to do is like now see the design variables are going to be breadth and height. Okay, so if I want to minimize the weight, okay, and there are some variables like now see these variables are like now see the design variables are going to be breadth and width and height. Okay, and it has the width and heights are given with some lower bound and upper bound. Like now see it can vary from like this value to that value. So that is going to be the lower bound and the upper bound, and the design constraints are already given. Like now see you have the sigma, like yield strength or the ultimate strength should not exceed 70 megapascal yield strength basically, and the shear strength should not vary 15 megapascal. Okay, then height should be greater than or equal to 2 times the height, breadth or the width. Okay, so this is going to be the constraints. Okay, so by considering like these information, I can write the problem statement in this manner. So you have objective which is going to be weight, minimizing the weight. There's a design variables. Okay, the width and heights are given. with its lower and upper bound. The design region is all beam element. Like, so you are going to do the design space for the all beam element, and the constraints are given. Okay. From this information, like, see what you will get out of it. Okay, you will get a picture out of it. Okay, so this is going to be the, like, say on the x-axis you have the breadth and the or the width. On the y-axis you have height. Okay, and you have, like, see variety of constraints are given. Like, you have got so from this left and right, top and bottom, what you can do is, like, see you can find the design or the domain of the region. Like, say that is the square region. The square region, like, see inside the figure I have shown one square region which is between the blue and red lines. Okay, so that is the design region. So in the design region, like, see when you try to apply different constraints, okay, when you try to apply the other variable, okay, you get a feasible design region and you get a unfeasible design region. Okay, so what is unfeasible design region? See whatever, like, whatever the result you will get in the unfeasible design, unfeasible domain, it is of no use to you, because in the unfeasible domain, either all or some of the constraints are not met. Okay, so that is the meaning of unfeasible design. Okay, in the feasible design, again, like, see all the constraints are met. Okay, so that is okay. But what we are looking for, we are looking for an optimum design. Okay, see the optimum design is the one where all these constraints are met at a single point. Let me see, that is what is given here. So that is going to be the optimum design. Okay, so this optimum design, let me see, that always, like, say falls in the feasible design domain, but it is exactly, like, say where all the constraints are met. Like, say we are looking for this sort of optimum design. Okay, so using these predictive tools, like, say one can get this, like, say using the predictive tool, like, say particularly OptiStruct. Okay, so one can get this optimum design, like, say based on the multi-objective design, multi-objective optimization techniques. Okay, so for particularly for metal, okay, so there are, like, some optimization techniques are, like, most prevalent. Okay, which is used to generate the conceptual design, and also, like, see at some cases, like, one can use this OptiStruct or optimization process to come up with the detailed design phase. Okay, so the different types are given here. Like, one is called size design. Okay, so you have a truss structure, and you have a loading structure. Okay, so using size optimization, like, you can kind of, like, find out, like, which size is best suited for this particular type of loading. Similarly, shape optimization, like, say for a particular loading, like, which is the best shape. And the topology optimization, suppose, like, see if you are given a bulk material, from that bulk material, depending on the loading information, it will tell you the topology, like, say based on the load path and other information, it will tell you the load, it will tell you the optimization process will tell you where and all you need material, or where and all you need more denser material. Okay, so accordingly one can find the topology of the structure. Okay, so when it comes to this sort of metallic structures, okay, so these predominantly these two design optimization methods are used. One is called size optimization, the other one is called shape optimization. Okay, so what is the final remark, like, now when it comes to optimization? So through optimization, design concepts and design details are established for metals. Okay, so that is for sure, like, now, so we have seen it. The optimized structure meets the functionality. Okay, so the main important point is, like, now, say whenever you are going for an optimization process, okay, it has to meet the functionality, because that is the prime requirement for the engineering design. Okay, but I cannot say, like, now, see, or one cannot say, like, now, see, the optimized structure is a lightweight structure. Okay, so this brings up the concept of lightweight design. Okay, so what is the need for lightweight? Okay, so the need is, like, now, say particularly I'm going to talk about this lightweighting with respect to automotive industry. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what is the need for lightweighting in automotive industry. So basically, like, now, see, presently there are, like, now, stringent CAFE standard, like now see it's called like now see CAFE standards, which are enforced by like now federal agencies on the automakers, okay, to reduce the fuel consumption of the car, okay, for every model year, okay. So that is what shown here. Like, see, the dotted line represents the standard, okay, and the solid line represents the actually achieved fuel efficiency by passenger cars and the light trucks, okay. But like, now see, particularly if you look at the model year 2008, okay, so there is a big gap between the achieved fuel economy and the standard. Like, now see, whatever the standard requires is like, now see, you have to achieve like, now so much of miles per gallon, but like, now see, automakers are unable to achieve that miles per gallon target because of the overweight of the car, okay. So straight away, like, now see, the straight solution to this problem, like now meeting the fuel efficiency target is like now by reducing the weight of the car, okay. So that is the only solution, okay. So how that can be, that is not the only solution. Like, let's see, what I'm telling is like, let's see, that is the one of the solutions, okay. So structurally it can be possible. Like, structurally what you can do is like, you can reduce the weight of the structure so that like, you can meet the fuel efficiency requirement, okay, set forth by the like now various various federal agencies, okay. So what are the methods? Like, now see, for lightweighting, like, now see, different methods are there. Like, now see, one is called requirement lightweight design, okay, and conceptual lightweight design, design lightweight, manufacturing lightweight, and material lightweight, okay. So every process or every design has its own pros and cons, okay. So I'm not going to discuss about other types like requirement lightweighting, conceptual lightweighting. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about material lightweighting, how one can achieve lightweighting in automotive industry through the use of high stiffness and high specific strength materials in a hybrid architecture, okay. So this is the this brings up like the concept of composite material, okay. So you have composite material, like, see, variety of combinations are possible. I'm not going to go in detail about composite material, but the one which I have marked under this red rectangle is more important. Like, see, the thing is like, the building block approach, okay. So you can reinforce fibers in different directions to get a unidirectional laminate. Okay, so this will be useful. Like, now say this approach will be useful in the composite optimization process, okay, to get a lightweight automotive structure, yet it meets the functionality. Okay, so this is all about composite material. Like, now see, there are variety of manufacturing method, variety of combinations are there. Like, now you have reinforcement, you have like now matrix. Like, now see, with this combination, like, now so variety of combinations are there. Okay, but how it will be useful? Okay, so that is what I'm going to talk about. But before that, what I'm going to do is like, see, what is the, how composite materials are different from metals, okay. So you can straight away you can say like, see, composite materials are low density material, and it is like, see, the most important point is it is inhomogeneous and isotropic material, okay, compared to metals which are homogeneous and isotropic material, okay. And other important qualities, like, see, metals are ductile material. So ductile in the sense like, these materials will undergo plastic deformation and it will absorb a lot of energy during the impact application. But composites are brittle material. Okay, so one advantage associated with composite material, this brittle nature is like, see, these like, see, of late people started thinking about multi-scale modeling of composite material. Okay, so multi-scale modeling of composite material in the sense these composite materials exhibit, okay, behaviors like, see, from the micro level. Like, see, you have micro level, you have macro level, and you have like meso level. Okay, so the failure mechanism associated with these composite materials are happening at multiple length scales, okay, which made possible for the automotive and other industries like, to look for composite material as a material choice for their components, okay. And other important differences, like, see, it has got only, the metals has got only two elastic constants, Okay, so this had a lot of difficulties into the material, composite material. Like now when it comes to composite material, you have got 9 independent elastic constants. Okay, so basically it is direction independent, like now say orthotropic material or anisotropic material. We can say the material, composite materials are direction dependent. All the properties, the important mechanical properties depends on the direction in which it is being measured. Okay, so that's why like now see you have got Ex, Ey, Ez, okay, which tells like now see the modulus in 3 directions, and similarly shear property in 3 planes and Poisson's ratio in 3 planes. Okay, so this makes the prediction of the composite materials a little complicated, but like I see, lot of research is going on, and the people started using composite material in variety of applications, right? So basically, this is to tell the stress strain behavior of composite material. I am not going to go in detail about this particular view graph. And here, this is the major difference. Like suppose you have isotropic material. Okay, if the isotropic material is loaded in any direction, okay, see opposite to the loading direction, like now you will end up getting like now because of Poisson's effect, like now you will end up getting compression. See if you apply a tensile load, okay, because of Poisson's effect, what will happen is in the opposite to the loading direction, you will have contraction. Okay, and similarly, you can see you can call this sort of behavior as a pure normal stress or pure tension. And similarly, like when it is subjected to pure shear, it will undergo only shear deformation. There won't be any coupling deformation. Like see when you apply a shear stress, like there won't be any tension or compression. Okay, so that coupling will not be there like for composite material. So that is the biggest advantage when I talk about isotropic material. But when I talk about orthotropic material, if the orthotropic materials are direct loaded along some principal material directions, okay, again it is going to exhibit the same sort of behavior. Okay, so other than the principal material direction, if you load the component, okay, orthotropic material, what will happen is like the tension will end up getting like so the tension behavior will end up, the tensile load will end up getting shear, the shear will end up getting tension, compression, all sort of this coupling things will come into the picture. That makes our life a little more complicated. Okay, so we need to keep in mind like now, so when we are talking about composite material, one important point is like now see from this view graph, like this is famous Ashby view graph. Like now basically what it says is like now see it is, if you look at the Young's modulus and strength of metals and composite, like now see composites are lagging behind in terms of strength and modulus. Okay, but what is actually ticking for composite materials are the specific modulus and specific strength. Okay, so what do we mean by specific modulus and specific strength? Like basically it is the modulus per unit volume or the modulus per strength per unit volume. Okay, so per unit volume, if you try to calculate the strength or the modulus, then composites are way ahead of metals. Okay, because of this reason, people started using composite material for many of the applications. Okay, and the same like now see in terms of numbers, like now see whatever I have mentioned in my previous slide. Okay, so I have given in terms of the numbers. Okay, so on the left hand side, like now basically I have two divisions. Like now see the first one talks about like now mentions about the metals. The second division talks about the composites. Okay, and its density, obviously composite materials are less denser than the metallic materials. And if you look at if you compare the modulus and tensile strength, like you can see the composites perform very well below the respective metallic material. Okay, so on the right hand side, like now I have marked in the red color rectangular thing. Okay, it shows the specific properties of composite material. It is the comparison of specific properties of composite material with respect to the metallic material. Okay, see in most of the cases the specific properties are comparable to the metallic material. In some cases the specific properties are better than the metallic material. So this is the point, like now this is the advantage of composite material. Okay, for it is being used in variety of applications. Okay, so once you decide to use composite material in the detailed design phase of the product design process, okay, So the next objective is to find the optimum thickness of each ply and orientation of the fibers. Okay, so now comes to the topic of composite optimization. Okay, so because like now see, we said we can use the composite material for like structural applications, and we pointed out like see what is the difference between metals and composite material, and where composite materials stand out in terms of its metallic counterpart. Okay, so now what I can do is like now see how the composite material okay can be used okay in the design process. Okay, so how to get the optimum design information based on the composite material, composite structural information. So that is what we are going to talk about. So that brings up the concept of composite optimization. What is the composite optimization? Already we talked about metal based optimization, like we talked about size optimization and shape optimization. Okay, so when I talk about composite optimization, like since when I talk about composite material, like see there are a lot of possibilities or most possibilities for design, since there is more possibility for like say better design freedom. Okay, the two-phase optimization process, like see already I have mentioned, it is called size and shape optimization. Like say that can be modified, that is modified into three-phase optimization process. Okay, for the structural optimization of composite materials. Okay, so what are all those three-stage optimization process? One is called phase one, which is called concept phase. Okay, so in the concept phase, okay, you will be interested in finding the what fiber angle do I need and where do I need. Like see in a structure, okay, you have a big structure. Okay, I want to know, okay, so what is the fiber angle do I need and where do I need. So depending on the loading requirement, okay, so through this optimization process I can come up with the like see the basically this optimization process will create a thickness distribution for each fiber angle. Like see you have got like already I have mentioned. So when you try to make a composite material, like see you have like see different angles one can make, like 0 degree, 90 degree, plus or minus 45 degree, okay, plus or minus 60 degree, like see one can make any angle. Okay, so basically what it means, like see this phase one creates hello. I'm sorry. So, hello.
Okay, sir, continue.
Continue, right? Okay. So basically, like see, it will create the concept. Okay, so concept in the sense, like see, for the objective function or for the given design variable. Okay, so this phase one optimization will give you the concept. Okay, sir. It basically it tries to create the concept design for the composite optimization. Okay, so once you know the fiber angle and its thickness distribution, the second optimization is the size optimization. In other words, it is called dimension optimization. Okay, so based on for different like because already I mentioned like you will have different fiber angle. Okay, for different fiber angle you will find the patches like where and all you need material and what is the like see angle of those material and what its thickness, that will be decided in the second. Basically the final thickness of each of the angle is decided in the size optimization. The third optimization, okay, which is called the shuffling optimization. Okay, in the shuffling optimization, like see what the idea is, like see there are some industry standard plybook rules are there. Okay, so one has to follow those plybook rules. Okay, and I'm going to talk about those plybook rules in detail in the coming slide. Okay, so these informations, okay, will be fed into the optimization process through which, okay, you will get the shuffle, like see 0 degree, like where one has to have the 0 degree, like what is the stacking sequence, like see basically that is the idea, like see the optimum stacking sequence. It will find the optimum stacking sequence in the third phase optimization. Okay, so this is the three-phase optimization process. Okay, so in next what I'm going to do is I'm going to give little more information about this three-phase optimization process, or else what I can do is, yeah, so since I think like what is the time? So already I have taken 1 hour. Maybe like probably what I can do is like maybe I can go through a little fast so that I can finish it like within maybe like in 10-15 minutes. Okay. So I have given detailed explanation on like free size and shuffle optimization. What I can do is like let me omit these 2 slides, like say 1 or 2 slides. Okay, and get back to this composite best practices. Okay, so here also what I'm going to do is like now I'm not going to go through all the information, but I'm going to go through 1 or 2 important playbook rules. So one is the first important playbook rule is called try to employ balance and symmetric whenever possible. Like now say whenever we are, I think like now people working in composite material and composite industry, they know the importance of balanced and symmetric laminate. Okay, so the purpose is like now see when you have a balanced and symmetric laminate, then the values like now see whatever the value you will get in the B matrix. Okay, I hope everybody knows about B matrix. You will have some minimum value in the B matrix so that the coupling like now see the bending coupling, the bending or the coupling between different terms in the matrix. Okay, warping and twisting effects that will be avoided. Okay, if you don't have this balance and symmetric matrix, then you will end up getting this sort of pitfalls. Okay, so these are all called pitfalls. Like see from the composite industry, like see this will pose lot of difficulty to the problem. Okay, to the structure. Okay, so basically like see, so that is the reason one can go for balance and symmetric laminate. Okay, so other one is you have to start with this quasi-isotropic laminate. So what is the quasi-isotropic laminate? So this laminate, that is sixth point, like so basically like you have 0 degree, 90 degree and plus or minus 45 lamina in your laminate structure. Okay, so you have to have at least one in each of these layer. Like you can have multiple of 0 degree, you can have multiple of 90 degree. So that's not a problem. Also you can have like a multiple of plus or minus 45. That is not a problem. But the requirement is like in the laminate, at least you should have one layer in each of the directions minimum. Okay, so what is it like? See, what is the reason like for this requirement? Basically, like 0 degree. Suppose if you are applying load along 0 degree, okay, then the layers in the 0 degree will take most of the load. Okay, that will offer more resistance and that will take more loads. Similarly, like see if the load is along 90 degree, if there is a layer, okay, so if there is a fiber along 90 degree, that will take more load. Okay, so that is the idea. Okay, so this laminate configuration, which consists of 0 plus or minus 45 and 90 degree, which we call as a quasi-isotropic laminate. Okay, so we cannot call it as a isotropic laminate, but it is called nearly isotropic laminate. Okay, so that is the second most important thing. The third one is like the third most important thing is like say whenever you are having this plus or minus 45, okay, always it should appear in pairs. In pairs in the sense like whenever you have a plus 45 degree layer, like immediately after the plus 45 degree or before the plus 45 degree, you have to have a negative 45 degree layer. Okay, so what is its advantage? Like whenever you have this pairs, okay, so basically it will like see it will increase the interlaminar shear strength. Okay, and in plane shear strength is also increased because of this pairs. Okay, so I'm not going to go in detail about all the information, but these three are the important playbook rules. Okay, one has to consider these information, like now see these playbook rules in the shuffle optimization process. Okay, then whatever the information, like whatever the optimum stacking sequence you will be getting is based on these parameters. Clear? Okay, now I'm getting into this case study. Like now say I'm not going to take too much of time in this case study. Basically the idea is like now see you have a car door. Okay, so in this car door basically we have like now see when I did my postdoc, like now basically my work was to minimize the mass of the door, okay, for the static stiffness requirement. Okay, so this is what like now see the mass split up is given. Like now see particularly we have considered frame and inner door panel. Okay, so this is the baseline door model on the left hand side. The kilograms are given. and the proposed ultra lightweight, like the composite car door, like the proposed weights are given. Like say the objective is to reduce the mass by 42%. Okay, yet meet the functional requirement. So what are the functional requirements? Like say I'm not going to go in detail about impact performance and high volume production. So that is other performance requirements, but I'm not going to talk about those things. Particularly what I'm going to talk is like now I'm going to talk about the static stiffness requirement. Like now whatever the car door we are considering here, it has to meet the static stiffness requirement. There are some static stiffness requirement set forth by the automotive OEMs. Okay, so we are going to consider those information. So this is the finite element model of the car door. You have back panel, front panel, okay, and you have this complete model, okay, and this is the vertical rigidity. Like now see, this is the static stiffness requirement. You have vertical rigidity and the loading condition and the boundary conditions are given. Torsional rigidity, you have check load rigidity and the header rigidity. Okay, so these are all the what? These are all the load conditions and the boundary conditions. Okay, then you have this baseline model. What is the baseline model? So baseline model is you need to run the simulation for the steel property and you need to find the response, okay, for these many loads, like say 4 different loads. Okay, so what are the response? Like the results of the baseline static analysis are given. So vertical rigidity, you have got 13 millimeter, torsional rigidity 37 millimeter. Like say these are all the constraints. It should not, like say whenever you are doing the composite optimization, like your optimization should not exceed the bound value. So this is going to be the lower bound value or the upper bound value, right? So now this is going to be the the parameters for the composite optimization. Okay, so minimize the mass, carbon epoxy material properties are considered. Okay, so to start with, like we have to start with quasi isotropic 090 plus or minus 45. Okay, the minimum thickness is given. What is the response? Like now we are looking for, like now say the response is like it has to meet the deflection requirement and the mass should be reduced. Okay, again the constraints are given, like now see it should not, like now see less than or equal to based on the static stiffness, baseline analysis, you have got the responses and other informations are given. Okay, so based on the previous given information, this is going to be the problem statement for composite structural optimization. Minimize mass, okay, design variables are thickness, okay, design constraints are going to be this one, okay, and the responses, like you have to reduce the mass, stress and strain should be minimum. Like now see basically you have to get a factor of safety which is above 1. Okay, so this process, like now see, now this is going to be the finite element model, like composite model, like now see composite, like after mapping the composite layer onto the door model. Okay, and this is the material property. So the important point which I want to make here is, like now see, to get the material property, what one has to do is, like one has to carry out the extensive testing. Like you have to do tension test, compressive test, and shear test. Like see, it is going to be extensive. But even in the material property also one can use like predictive tools. Okay, so basically for T300 and epoxy, okay, through this software it's called a simulation composite design. Okay, so one can predict the property. Okay, so based on the based on the micromechanics approach, I hope like you all aware of micromechanics approach. So based on this micromechanics approach, one can predict the property and you can use this property in the predictive tools. Okay, and this is based on the result. Like now say I'm not going to go in detail because I'm running out of time. And so basically this is the outcome of the size optimization. Like see, basically it tells you, like the red region tells where the thickness is, like basically it is the thickness variation. The blue region tells, like see, the thickness is very minimum, and the red region tells like the thickness is very high, and in between blue, this dark blue and this red, like now you have this variation of this thickness. Okay, so based on this thickness, if you calculate the mass of the door, it is going to be 4.66 kg. Okay, when I started the baseline analysis, like if you look at the baseline analysis, the mass of the door is 12 kg. Okay, so from this optimization analysis, okay, I wanted to meet the stiffness requirement. Stiffness requirement in the sense, like see, different load cases are there. For the different load cases, you have the displacement requirements. Okay, so based after satisfying all the displacement requirements, like now whatever my final mass of the door is going to be approximately 5 kg, which gave a weight reduction of 39%. Okay, which exactly meets my design objective. Like, see, initially when I started, I wanted to reduce the mass by 42%, but like, see, this optimization process went little above and reduced the mass by 39%. Okay, then this is the outcome of the third optimization analysis, which is called the stacking sequence analysis. Like, see, based on, like, basically it has undergone 3 iterations. On the 3 iterations, let me see, all the playbook rules are considered for the optimization manufacturing analysis. Then you have got this stacking sequence optimization. Like, iteration 2 tells you the optimized stacking sequence. Like, see, in that one, like, green color represents 45 degree, yellow represents negative 45 degree, 0 represents blue, and red represents 90 degree. Okay, already I have mentioned, like, whenever you have this plus or minus 45, always it should appear in pair. Like, see, if you look on the iteration 2 column, okay, if you look, like, see, always this plus and minus 45 are happening next to each other. Okay, so this actually tells that the playbook rules are considered for the optimization analysis. Okay, and basically, like, how will you say that the structural integrity? Basically, you will try to see the factor of safety. Okay, so if you look at the factor of safety in 4 load cases, okay, at all the design region, like, see, it is going to be, like, for all the case it is going to be above 1. Okay, for principal fiber direction, because in composite material, like, see, you have principal fiber direction and transverse to principal fiber direction. So this is the transverse fiber direction. Okay, so this says, like, see, our design is a feasible design. Feasible design in the sense optimum design. Okay, so basically this is the optimized one. Okay, so I'm not going to get into this one. Basically, this is going to be the final remarks on this presentation. Basically, so what is it? So conventional design iteration approach is replaced by powerful numerical method based optimization technique. Okay, what is its use? Like, basically predictive tools are used to reduce the number of prototypes needed for the design iterations. So that is the advantage of this predictive tools, and the validity of these numerical capabilities can be established by comparing with minimum number of experiments. You don't have to go for, like, extensive testing, like, because I talk about testing when I talk about conventional design. Like, so you don't have to do test at every time. Like, you can do test at 1 or 2 times. Okay, later you can predict everything through numerical simulations. Okay, the other one is this technique, like, see, this predictive tool based optimization technique is powerful tool for designers at both conceptual and design stage. Okay, so time and cost involved in prototype making is reduced. Okay? Other one is particularly like this, like, optimization, predictive approach based, predictive engineering based optimization techniques are now being used extensively in lightweight product design applications. Okay, so what it all give, like, basically, if you look at the final outcome with a lot of option with respect to the CAE. Okay, so you have CAD, CAM, CAE. Basically, the objective of the final product, okay, it can be fabricated with less turnaround time. Okay, so this is going to be my final remarks, and thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.